All right, we have a great show today. New software development tools that are changing the nature of how we code. China unveils us some new sexy robots, and really the cost of intelligence. We're going to discuss how the cost of intelligence is going to zero. So stay tuned. Let's get started. Hey, Dror.
How would you pronounce cursor? Cursor. Cursor.
Cursor AI, is it? Cursor. It's Cursor.
Cursor. Cursor.com.
Yeah. That's a good way to kick things off. We can't pronounce it, but I can pronounce it. I think you're pronouncing it.
Cursor is it's this. Do you know it's VS Code? VS Code is like the world's most common coding IDE, integrated development
Yep.
environment. And but it's open source and it's by Microsoft, and it's used to build everything. It's pretty actually powerful tool for developers. Someone took the open source version of that, forked it, and basically integrated AI in a native way. Now, Microsoft already does that with Copilot. Apparently, they did a better job. And now people say that Cursor is the killer app of AI. So I've seen somewhere that maybe $1 billion since the beginning of the AI kind of wave has gone into AI, like coding startups, which is really actually amazing. And so people are getting excited about it. It's not new, but I think that it's having a moment right now on Twitter. Andrei Karpathy, which is like one of the godfathers of kind of the LLM, is a 30-something-year-old guy in San Francisco. He's already a godfather of the large language model AI. He's a ex Stanford tutor. He worked at chief of AI or AI director in Tesla and OpenAI, and is basically a teacher. So he's now teaching. He can teach you how to build your own LLM. And he is really being vocal on Twitter about the use of Cursor as the new way of coding. And I'm coding these days with using AI, and I 100% agree. The what we used to do and what we're doing now is tremendous. It's so different, and it's so fast moved. You just coding these days is kind of a little bit of a few lines, then you add a comment, you throw it to the LLM, or you have it integrated in Cursor. You review what comes out, you edit it. It's more like editing than writing. It's actually phenomenal. And I think it joins a bunch of news coming recently about, I think I shared with you something, how Amazon, was able to reduce technical debt and save something like 4,500 developer years, by basically automating part of the let's take a step back. When any software base needs to be maintained, and it's a pain in the ass, and no one wants to do it because everybody wants to build nice new sexy features. Who wants to go into a 40 years old, 20 years old, 10 years old code base and like modernize that or patch it, or who it's like shitty job. But AI can do that. So I read somewhere that I think they saved something like hundreds of millions of dollars by automating and using AI in order to modernize their backend code base. CEO of Amazon, which I think is a phenomenal economic, economic, it's not a business case for AI. And I think this is like a trend that is accelerating and is really ahead of the pack in terms of transformation of practice. Of course, we all talked about how you kind of don't need the graphic designers if you can ask Canva to do something for you. I think the 10x we talked about in this show about in productivity of developers is a massive game changer, and we're seeing it happening. And there's basically Coursera AI is having a moment right now.
Yeah, no, I think this is just the trend where we're seeing the way we do everything is changing, and you would think that the coding part of that would be later, or even what we're seeing with Copilot was a good step forward. But there are these leaps and bounds that are happening, and I think there's going to be two schools of thought. One is coding this way with having your I don't like the word Copilot, but having your own assistant to really help you along the way. And like you say, I mean, there are people outside of the big players that are doing that sometimes better. And I think that's what's interesting. I think Andrew's, if we bring up that tweet, just the fact that he's saying something like this is game changing in what they're doing is really a step. We're going to see further and further adoption of these approaches. And the second approach is just the no code part of it, where people won't even program. We're talking, we talked a couple of weeks ago about this agentic approach where you'll just ask something to be built and it'll be built. And sure, that will be harder in some ways. Like it's hard to get the exact image you want when you're talking to some of the LLMs around imagery. But I do think there'll be these two approaches, and if you're not doing that, I think there's no way you can compete effectively. But I do think the opportunity for startups, once again, is I'm seeing lots of non-technical startups or people who are smart founders, but who have more capability because they understand what they're trying to build. And so this approach is really powerful for them. We have a meeting later this week with someone that's exactly doing that, building an agent oriented business and understanding the problem. And I think this is where it's going to be super powerful. And I think just because people are technical now, I think you're going to have to adopt multiple skills. And I think that's where we sort of start to think about this. Is I think having multiple skills is what's going to be important to be able to apply this technology in another area, and having the knowledge of both, or combining founders that have two different bits of knowledge will be really powerful to create some really interesting solutions. So I think it's exciting, but this is just the beginning, and so how we code is going to keep going.
There's this philosophical question: will this technological change mean in the future there's going to be less developers or more developers? And I think there will be more, but there won't be exactly what we call developers. So let me share the way I think about it. So the AI changing the entire spectrum of what software developers do. So from maintenance of existing systems like Amazon just shared, and then a new guy has a new idea and they want to build something. And then so in the middle you've got companies big and small using software to for their operations. Software, I like the phrase software is eating the world, and I think software ate the world. So software is now basically pretty much almost in every part of human economic activity, if you want, if not social activity as well.
So but the question is AI eating software?
I think yes. I think that metaphor works for me, and I think yes, and it is. So when software ate the world and then there's millions and millions and millions of people doing software. So now the question is okay, so AI is automating a tremendous amount of that. What's going to happen? Is that going to mean there's going to be less people doing software? There's less people doing agriculture, net percentage of population, because of the automation in farming, etc. Is it going to be the same? And now there's no one knows the future. You can argue both ways. But what I do know is that we're going to see software more integrated in everything we do. So the demand for technologies and tech tools that take an idea and convert it into an app, and then let you talk to it, and then maybe take the code and throw it into Cursor to change it, and then go back into your cloud, your Kubernetes, whatever it is. Those things make sense to me, and I think that's it's coming. So no code is going to be changed by AI. Old code is going to be powered by AI. Low code is going to be changed by AI, and I think this is just across the board. So it's not either or, definitely.
No, but I do think this is the whole. Are you stripping down, Dror?
I'm stripping it. I'm too excited about the talk about.
I'm getting concerned. Look, I feel like this is the concept that I talk about is, I think if you're average, I don't think there's going to be a role in almost every profession, whether you're in the health industry, or you're in the legal industry, or you're in just any industry. I feel like this technology would take someone who is, there's no role for someone just working in a mediocre way. I think this will enhance. The question I have actually is around this is, if you are mediocre, can this enhance you to being better than you are? And if you are really good, what does this mean for someone who is really a good coder? Will they use it or will they not? Or is there still going to be this distinction? And
hey, I'm a really good coder and I'm using it constantly. I'm a very good coder. I'm definitely a 10x a team higher. And I'm telling you, I'm using it constantly, and now I'm 100x. And if you're not using it, what are you exactly using?
Yeah. No, but I think this isn't just in programming. I think this is also across the board. I think the other concept that I wouldn't mind throwing in there is we've discussed this before, is when the cost of developing software becomes close to zero or negligible, do we have this thing around disposable software? So when you say, are they going to be more or less, do we just develop things using this technology and then use it for something and throw it out? And maybe there's a way to capture that data, and we just that just sort of sits in a somewhere where you can leverage it, but we just continually have different applications that interact with these data sets, and we just have a way to do that, and we just software proliferates. You just
So so
create things.
so so when you say Yash, we've been talking about like throwaway software almost, right? What was the phrase we use?
Disposable software. That's what I say.
Disposable software. What do you imagine when you say that? Because I think we see different things here. Well, what is it for you?
So for me, I see I need an application to do something. So it might be, let's use the example. We have an event coming up. We want to have tickets put out there. We want to capture who's coming on the door. So there are pre-built. We could go to Eventbrite and use all these different things. It might be I want something customized for my own. Take a bit of our brand, create the details around that, and it knows how to do that. So I go, yeah, we need to do this now. I can go there, or I can create it straight away. It's out there. There might be many other use cases. Let's say we're doing DD around a particular company. We may want to have some assistance in that around research assistance that will bring all that consistent data that we have. So there are applications that do this today, and there are more and more but can we develop on the fly that's customized for what I want there and then? And I'm not, I may or may not use it in the future, but I'll just do it because there's no real cost to me to do it, or very negligible cost if I'm already paying for something that does it. How do you see it?
So even more mundane. Like let me give an example from the world of design. So my wife is, or maybe was, a designer, graphic designer. So Photoshop, skilled in Photoshop back in the day. And if you want a poster for an event, a wedding, whatever, it's like a spiel. It's a commission of work. It's several hours. It's meeting the customer. It's SOW, whatever, and so forth. Now it's a prompt away. Okay, so that's a disposable design. I think of it like it's like, hey, design me something. You don't even like, you look at it for a second, you go, oh, interesting, and then you move on. My son is he asked me to ask ChatGPT to have a picture of him playing with Messi, and then he prints it. So that's this thing used to take. I did something similar for my daughter for 10 years ago. I asked someone in Upwork or one of those, to design for me. I paid them $500 to show me a picture of my daughter like playing with some characters from a movie. That was not throwaway. Now I can throw it away, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, it's something that you do it so quick. You check something, it's temporarily. Sure, for an event you do, I think that's more like it's an Eventbrite or something like that. But what about a group of people play with something? They talk to the AI. The AI can generate that software for them on the fly. It does the thing it wants to do just that right there, and then they move on. So it's very similar to what we said about the get the AI to do a story for you, get the AI to do a little video for you, and then you watch. You don't save it. You don't use it forever and ever. You like look at it for a second. I think that's kind of where the direction of software is heading to. Sure, and like I'm just saying, it's a new category of software. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's this ephemeral software. Maybe it's used once. It's showcasing an idea, and then it takes it and do something else for them. That's kind of where I'm going.
No, 100% agreement. Let's extend that out. And I don't know if you've seen, we've talked before about some of the robots that are being developed as well that have particular things. So I recently saw a Chinese robot. I think it's called Astribot S1, which was just launched. And it's quite an interesting one where, you're seeing another, a version around being able to do all these different tasks ranging from, I think they demonstrated doing what was it? It was Wing Chun, moving, doing things, pouring cereal, feeding a cat, making a waffle. We've seen I can't remember the name of the other one that we had which was doing it with the Apple, and I'm terrible with remembering names, but they look very similar and not unlike. There seems to be a bit of the. But I also see the next level of what we could start to have is to interact these programs, and this is where it could get scary, where these these kinds of robots will be programmable at the same time. And so if we're talking about doing tasks or we're doing things there, it would be really interesting to see how you could actually start to do physical tasks in a similar manner. So we could extend what we're talking about, the programs, if it could interact with a robot like this. And sure, you need to have lots of guardrails, but if there were particular things that you could do, imagine that, you'll be able to go and just do some amazing things. I think with this, good and bad, that's probably the bigger challenge. Yeah, I mean, what's your sort of thoughts? I think I do sort of see this. There's multiple things happening at the same time. I think that's, I guess, one of my points. And I think for thinking about it for an opportunity to build, we are in a. I mean, we're there now, but even further down the line in a few years, I think we're going to see some unique things happening. We've already seen that in factories, but whether we start to see this in the residential side, whether we start to see it, and how that will be regulated, and how that will be.
Yeah, let me show you something. So two things. There's this thing. So this is taken from the event. I think it reminds me of a meme I've seen the other day. This is the meme.
Yeah.
So first of all, this is let's stop the share. First of all, I mean, you have to agree that if you want to capture the imagination of the human race, you make a very sexy robot. And I think it's like pathetic but true. It's just pathetic. How pathetic of a species are we? But that's what people did, right? So the robots walking out in that conference are like, they have a big, sexy curves and sexy looking shapes, and so all the men are drooling over robots now. It's just like exactly in the comics we read when we were teens or something. I don't know. People read. I didn't. Anyway, so I think it's happening. It's going to be very interesting to see. Robots are coming for sure. I don't see why not. I told you the joke. The joke is that when I bought my first computer in '91, well, when they bought me my first, I was 13, and my mom says, "What do we need this for?" And I showed her, you can type, you can code, we did, word processor. And she says, "Does it do coffee? Can it clean the house?" And then every few years I came and I needed money for a new computer. The joke was, is this new version going to make coffee? Is it going to clean the house? And I think it's been like 30 something years. And like, I have a feeling it's getting there. Do you know what I'm saying? Soon, the next version will actually do the coffee and maybe clean the house. And then
So that's your Turing test, is when we get to that stage.
That's my Chedva test. My mom's not Turing,
Yes, sorry, you're right. You will.
It doesn't matter if it's intelligence, but can you do the coffee and can you clean the house? Then it's a true change of society. Don't you
I think we're pretty much there. I'm looking at some robots. Anyway, just maybe a couple of other quick things as well. I don't know if you saw Microsoft's new Phi 3.5 model.
Do you care that there's a new model in Microsoft? I mean, by now, what's the news?
Well, look, I think the thing for me, this news, in a nutshell, it's a smaller, powerful model, just different flavors of these models. But for me, the interesting feature around this is Microsoft versus OpenAI. Are they kind of now going, okay, we've built up enough, they were behind, they put some money into OpenAI. What do you think that relationship will be like? So I guess in a summary around the models, they're smaller, powerful models. They seem to be pretty good on comparison with some of the other models in that space. But the bigger thing for me is to go is where is that? What do you think that relationship will be like? And we see Apple and OpenAI. We start to see.
I think the proof, the industry, as Eric Schmidt said in the conversation we talked about last week, that this industry has a track record in the incumbents missing the next waves. So Microsoft missed the internet. Apple missed the internet, had to jump to mobile. Google kind of questionable about missing the mobile or not, but definitely the question is whether or not AI is such a platform. There's a lot of other examples, by the way, not just with the big companies. Incumbents missing the next wave. So how do you win? So I think you win by having the best developers in this type of race, which is a technological race. You win if you've got the best developers and an organization that can move fastest. And I think OpenAI is currently winning because it can move the fastest, because it doesn't have the legacy of I don't know how many employees at Microsoft have. It's like 100,000 or whatever. How many employees Google? I think 300, 800, sorry, 80,000. So like it's a different thing, right? To move as a technical organization dedicated just to AI versus a whole platform company with endless people who vying for, doing bureaucracy and politics in order to get budgets to do their thing. So I think that it's not whether do you believe Microsoft can do it. I currently hold the opinion that OpenAI has better chance because they have better talent, and so they will move faster. And now what's Apple, like what Google and Microsoft going to do? They either integrate it into their, if indeed that plays out and OpenAI is the most intelligent model, then it will be the next $1 trillion business, and then all the other companies will use its technology somehow, and it will be how it plays out. If on the other hand it goes, the gap between the frontier model and the second tier is oscillating, right? We talked about how it oscillates. It grows and it shrinks. If that shrinks, then there's all the other all the other guys can also implement their own models that don't need OpenAI. We'll see. I will give you one data point here, which is this thing. We talked about it. This is a really nice chart. It shows how token cost GPT-4 level models over time. So the net cost of inference is just going through this exponential decay very clearly because the entire process is being optimized by engineers constantly. So I think the net of it is that the cost of intelligence is kind of heading towards zero. And they say there's two major things that never happen in the history of the human race, in that will happen in our lifetime. Energy is going to go to zero, and the cost of intelligence is going to go to zero. And the ramification of those two things is beyond traditional economic thinking. Right? Humans are still the species we know, and we know the psychology of humans and mass psychology and so forth. So you can make forecasts based on that. Economically speaking, we never lived in a world where the energy cost is close or near or going to zero, and intelligence wasn't even a thing we even quantified or put a cost to. So I think that's my most interesting, I think, takeaway from this whole dynamics, this whole market dynamic.
Well, so I think we are going, if the cost to the end user is, but not how do you make money? How do the people providing this make money? Because that's one thing that we haven't really solved at this stage, and I think that's the question. Everyone's spending on the view that this will become a way of making money. I think that will be worked out. I agree with you. And I think the costs are coming down. And I think last week we were talking about it becoming more efficient. Look at how Anthropic, for example, were using their models by caching and making the cost and the speed of that better. So I feel this is where we're also headed, that the economics of that will start to stack up. The question is, for me, is will it be, and it more than likely will be, the big players that are putting the money in now that will start to get that economic return. But right now, it's not quite stacking up. But I think you're seeing the adoption. So we're seeing the usefulness. So I think it's fascinating. I think you need to be in here using. I think that's why all the tech companies are pouring money into this, because we can see it. I think we just haven't quite worked out the economics of that working yet. So I also think there's a component here of renewable energy that may come in. We're seeing, so actually, I talked at an event last week, and at that event we were looking at there were some companies there looking at how they cool data centers, how they cool chips and make that more efficient, how they reuse some of this technology. And I think I find that quite interesting to see that people are thinking about this. And I think there'll be ways to make that economic value work. And that's where, I see this is definitely problems that are being solved. And that's what we're investing in this space. So I think that's been a good discussion around, there's a new mode, right? A new mode of programming. This is just that next level. People have started to see that, but I think the evolution of this is just that we're just on that pathway. And to me, the big question is when we'll just be able to generate whatever we need at the drop of a hat, and programmers will be fun. I actually think we'll have less programmers. I actually feel like, having thought about it now, I think in the end we'll have less programmers, but we'll have higher quality, bigger output. My other thing with this is, what will be the role when we think about what's happened over the last 10 to 20 years around offshoring and outsourcing, and whether that will come onshore, and whether we'll just have, people will work that way. And so I would be a little bit worried if, for the big, outsourced providers, that there's another way. And I see this playing out not just in programming. I see this in cybersecurity. I see some, a lot of business with a lot of junior analysts who are onshore, offshore, all of these sides of things. I see that changing as well with AI, that you're not going to just have these. There's a better way to do all of this. And so this is going to be across the board, across technology, but it's also across every other industry. So I think we've just covered one use case today in an industry that we know. And I think this is going to be the same in many more. Just the beginning.
Your turn to wrap it up for the day.
That's another This Week in AI. Hope to see you next week. If you like what we're talking about, subscribe. Please do suggest anything else. Reach out to us. We'd love to continue the conversation with all of you. But thanks so much. That's another This Week in AI. Bye.